I'm Marsha, and this video is a contest entry for the Guncles channel. They have asked people to submit videos containing record recommendations for each one of the Guncles, or records you would not recommend for each one of the Guncles. Now there are 4 Guncles: Richard, Craig, Mike, and Robert. And according to Robert, Richard is the wise one, Craig is the sweet one, Mike is the cool one, and Robert is the ass. Those are his words, not mine. And I think I have music in my collection that'll fit all 4 of those personality types. So let's get started. My first recommendation is for Richard, and it is Batman and Robin, The Sensational Guitars of Dan and Dale. Now, this record was put out during the time of the TV show. As you can see, it's got all the fun words here, but it has no affiliation with the TV show. It was made to cash in on the popularity of the TV show, and it was put out by a toy company, Tifton Records. Now, this record was produced by Tom Wilson, who also produced a bunch of Dylan albums and the first 2 Mothers of Invention records, which is why this is my recommendation for Richard, because he is a big Zappa fan. As well, he likes experimental music. How could he not? He likes Zappa. The Sensational Guitars of Dan and Dale are hired guns. And in this particular project, those hired guns are from the Blues Project and Sun Ra and his orchestra. So this is really the only record in my collection that I have that contains an avant-garde experimental musician, since that is not my lane at all. However, there is nothing experimental or avant-garde about this record. It is just lively and entertaining as hell. It is swinging, rockin' 60s bachelor pad music, I guess is the best way to describe it. Just put this on during a dinner party and all your friends will enjoy the hell out of it. I initially bought this album because I liked the artwork and I wanted to give it as a gift to somebody who is into comics, who's into DC, loves Batman. And when I bought it, the gentleman I bought it from was very excited that I was going to get this cult classic Sun Ra album. But when I put it on my turntable and listened to it, I decided it wasn't going to be a gift. I was going to keep it for myself because I am a terrible person that way. Anyways, I actually think all the Guncles would enjoy this. It's just a really, really good time. And listen to some of the titles on here. The Riddler's Retreat, Batman and Robin's Swing, Penguin's Umbrella, Joker is Wild, Batman and Robin Over the Roofs. That is actually the best track on here, and if I can figure it out, I will include a link so that everybody can hear that song. My next recommendation is for Craig, and it is Holly and the Italians, The Right to Be Italian. And the reason I am making this recommendation for Craig is, obviously, she is a tough girl. She's a little bit punky, she's a little bit pop, she's totally new wave. Craig loves new wave, and since he's the sweet one, he could use a little bit of tough girl attitude in his life. And I believe he has an affinity for tough girl attitude from what I have gathered in watching several of their videos these last several months. It's just a lot of fun, and I apologize, I'm going to say everything's a lot of fun in this video probably 100 times, but this is a fun record. It's from early 80, early 81, and she's got this one song on here, Tell That Girl to Shut Up, and the chorus is, tell that girl to shut up or I'm going to beat her up. So sure, there's some internalized misogyny in here. She can be very bratty. I'd like to think she's probably grown out of that, since it has been 40 years, but I do believe Craig would adore this record. If you like Joan Jett, if you like the Go-Go's, pick up Holly and the Italians, The Right to Be Italian. You'll love it. My next recommendation is for Mike, and it is The's Dusk. And the reason I am choosing this for Mike, I have no idea. I just intuitively feel like he would like this record. If you look at the artwork, here's this big, dark, brooding city, and he lives in Chicago, so that works. But I just feel he would really, really like this CD a lot. This is a fantastic album. It's all about longing and desire, and there's some self-sabotage going on in these songs. Matt Johnson is a wonderfully talented songwriter, and you have Johnny Marr on guitars. How could you go wrong with that? Lyrically, this album is just incredible, and everything hits and makes sense. I just can't recommend it enough. For Mike, Dusk by Dada. As well, he had indicated he was not really into what was going on musically in the early 90s, and this was released in the early 90s, which is another reason I am recommending it to him, outside of the fact that just intuitively I feel like he would like it. My next recommendation is for Robert, and it might be a little bit of a cheat. On their last live stream, they were talking about the Kinks, and Robert had talked about Lola, and he had talked about 8-Man. And that triggered me because I have been having a debate with my mother for many months now about the Kinks. It's my mother's position that the Kinks' best song is Lola, and it is my position that, well, she's wrong, and that the best song that the Kinks do is not Lola, and Lola isn't even the best song off of the Lola album. There was some talk in the comments on that live stream, and somebody brought up This Time Tomorrow. That is the best song off of the Lola album. And Robert said he didn't know what that song is. And that is a damn crying shame, and it needs to be rectified immediately. And that is my recommendation for Robert. It is Lola versus the Power Man and the Money Group, blah, 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 blah. I love the Kinks, but they went a little bit off the rails on the title of this one. So, yes, This Time Tomorrow is probably a top 5 Kinks song for me, top 5 of all time. It is by far and large the best song on this album. Lola, as great as it is not the best song on this album. It's not even the second. The second best song is Strangers. And I'm sure once Robert listens to this, he will agree with me that This Time Tomorrow is the best song off of this album. And Strangers is the second. And, you know, we'll put Lola at third and 8-Man at fourth. Onto the records I think the Guncles would not like. I'm going to be bringing up a sensitive time in American history, and apologies in advance to those I may offend. I'm offending myself, actually, with this selection. It is the Royal Crown Review, Muggsy's Move. You know, there was a time 25, 26 years ago where collectively as a society, we accepted a swing music revival as a happening, and I think it was just because Vince Vaughn was so goddamn attractive in swingers that we allowed that to happen. I mean, I know I hung out at those swing bars at the time because I wanted to meet a 20-something-year-old Vince Vaughn type. My infatuation with him lasted very briefly, up until Psycho. After that, I had no interest in him. But my big problem with the swing music revival and the music that was put out in response to that revival is that it was terrible, just like the CD is terrible. That's the most egregious thing about this, is that it's terrible. But it was all the kitsch that they tried to bring into it. You know, the fact that they were now, you know, calling women doll face and wearing wallets on chains and talking about spats in every other lyric, and why all these bands had to have some form of daddy in their name made no sense to me. But that's what I hated about that movement, and it's what I still hate about it. And the reason I would not recommend this for Richard is because I think he was too smart to have fallen for this bullshit. I think he would have recognized that the kitsch that they were trying to bring to this revival wasn't clever at all. And just to prove that it wasn't clever, let me read you some of the wonderful lyrics in this. So there is a song in here called Barflies at the Beach, and it is written by the lead singer, or at least the lyrics are, but it's based on the music of Sing 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 by Louis Prima. First verse. All right, you bums, listen up. Suntan oil don't go good with a three-piece suit. You know, it makes it all oily and stupid looking. Just go and listen to the Benny Goodman version. Don't bother with this ridiculous, non-clever catch. And I believe Richard is smart enough that he would just say, I don't need this. I'll just go and listen to Benny Goodman. Or I'll just go and listen to Louis Prima. I mean, he's fabulous. Don't waste your time with this at all. My next non-recommendation is for Craig. And it is Bruce Springsteen's Tunnel of Love. Now, Craig likes new wave. He likes synth pop. The Guncles have mentioned in some previous videos Bruce Springsteen. He doesn't have a whole heck of a lot to say. I believe it's because Bruce Springsteen isn't in his lane. And I don't believe Bruce Springsteen would even be in his lane, even with all the synthy goodness that goes on this record. I just don't think it's his taste. So this is not a record I would recommend to Craig. My next non-recommendation is for Mike. And this is kind of an easy go, but it is So Christmas on the Atco label, and Mike doesn't like Christmas music. He made that perfectly clear in several videos. In fact, they did a whole video of Christmas music in which he declared multiple times that he does not care for Christmas music. So I would not recommend this record to him, because he would believe songs like White Christmas by Otis Redding are garbage. They're not. It's not garbage. Or that Silver Bells by Booker T and the MGs is trash. It's not. It's not trash. Rational people would like this record, Mike. Seriously. Maybe give it a listen. Although I'm breaking the rules, aren't I? Anyways, I would not recommend this record to Mike. My last non-recommendation is for Robert, and it is Victoria Williams' Happy Come Home. I would not recommend this to him because she has a very peculiar way of singing, or very quirky vocal stylings, and that she sounds both like an old lady and a child at the same time. And the worst thing about this record, I bet many people would say the worst thing about this record is her voice. But the worst thing about this record, in my opinion, is that the worst track on the album opens it. So I would not recommend this to Robert, because I believe he would say, I do not have time for that kind of nonsense. Nor do I have the patience to want to become acquired with that nonsense. So thank you for watching my video. Guncles, please recognize that I made a sacrifice, and I actually did listen to that Swing Revival CD. It was god-awful. What were we thinking at the time? Was that just an American thing, or did that go on in like Europe and Australia? If anybody knows the answers, let me know. Anyways, thanks so much for watching my video.